Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Chris Horner. This is stage 14 of the Vuelta a España. 160 kilometers, about 100 miles in length, and 3 KOMs on today's stage. First KOM is going to summit with about just under 55 kilometers to go, and then the last two climbs, they start at 22 kilometers to go. The first one, 10 kilometers long at 5.5%. It's only a category 2, but the last climb at 8.5 kilometers and 7.5%. This is a category 1 monster climb to summit today's stage 14 of the Vuelta a España. Now, the organizers call it 2 climbs, but really, when you look at it, it's one big monster climb with a bit of a descent in between them. Now when the racing starts, the first 80 kilometers were fast and furious, and I didn't get to see those from sitting on the couch because the cameras come on with just under 80 kilometers to go on today's stage, but I can tell the action was hot and furious throughout the stage because when the cameras come on, there's 8 riders in the front, 2 riders chasing behind at 15 seconds. That's Raul Garcia from Kern Pharma, along with Marco Brenner from DSM, the young rider. Now, these 2 riders will bridge up to the front group of 8 to make 10 riders represented up there. The big threat on the general classification, if you want to call him that, is going to be Richard Carapaz from Team Ineos. But he's 19th on the general classification, about just under 15 minutes behind on GC because on yesterday's stage 13, he sat up at the finish and gave up 3 more minutes on the general classification. So there's no big threat up here in this group of 10, but if these guys want to win the stage, they got to get into the finishing climbs, the last 2 climbs with 22 kilometers to go, with enough time to hold off the GC battle from behind. Because you know Jumbo-Visma are going to want to battle with Primoz Roglic. Quick Step with Remco Evenepoel in the race leader's red jersey. They might just set tempo up this climb. But then we got the other GC battles back there that are fighting for 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th, and 10th, all the way back on the general classification. So this group of 10 need maximum time. Problem is, when you look in this group of 10, it's represented with Richard Carapaz, and he's a pure climber who just got done winning the mountain stage a couple days ago here at the Vuelta a España. So there's a little bit of predicament up here in this group of 10. Now, guys represented up there from Trek Segafredo, we got Mads Pedersen in the race leader's green jersey. Kenny Elizon, his teammate. I told you Richard Carapaz was there. Filippo from Lotto Soudal is there. Raul Garcia, Kern Pharma, he bridged across and made it in. Clement Champusson from AG2R. Luis Leon Sanchez from Bahrain Victorious. Bruno Armai from FDJ. Marco Brunner from DSM, the young kid, he made it across with Raul Garcia. And then Alexei Lusenko to make a solid powerhouse of riders in this front break. Now, we look back at the Peloton chase, and it's Quick Step back there with the race leaders, red jersey, Remco Evenepoel, keeping everything on a tight leash, but they're only running 1 rider back there in the form of Remy Cavagna. Now, the first 80 kilometers of this race, sure, it was blazing fast, but when you're sitting on the couch and the cameras come on late, I couldn't tell you how much work Quick Step would have had to do. Could be they had a free ride back there just following and surfing all of the attacks throughout the first 80 kilometers until this group of 10 went up the road that they're happy with nobody a threat on the general classification. But when we start going back up to this group of 10, the problem these guys have, now the break formed so late, they're starting the first climb coming up here pretty soon with about 60 kilometers to go in the stage. And with the race starting so late, that only gives them 20 kilometers basically to really start gaining some time on all the GC teams behind. So this group of 10, when I'm looking up here, they're for the first 10, 15 kilometers of racing once the camera's coming on, going from kilometer 80 to about kilometer 65, they're really just getting bottles and drinking and hydrating. And when you go back to the Peloton, it's the same thing happening back there. So the time gap's not really extending out massively to this group of 10 when you consider it's only one Remy Cavagna on the front chasing for Quick Step. Now we start getting into the first climb here with 3 climbs to go. They'll summit the top of this KOM where Richard Carapaz will cross the line first with about a 4-minute gap on the Peloton behind. When the Peloton comes up to this KOM, they're going to lose about another 20 seconds to this group of 10. But after that, that's going to be the maximum time that they give this group of 10 with Remy Cavagna pulling on the front throughout the whole stage here on stage 14 in the Vuelta a España. Now we come in with 33 kilometers to go up to the sprint line competition, and of course the group of 10 give it to Mads Pedersen, who rolls across the line to put on a dominating display here in the points competition. He's pretty much got this thing all wrapped up. Now, after that, this is when the tactics start coming into play for Trek Segafredo, because Mads Pedersen will get on the front and he'll pull for about 4 or 5 kilometers, 100%, trying to gain some time back there on Quick Step's Remy Cavagna. I don't like this tactic at all because you have Richard Carapaz in this front group getting a free ride. And at this point in time, this is the time after that sprint line competition where you could start attacking in this group of 10 and trying to gap Richard Carapaz back there and get some time on him before the climb start. Instead, like I said, Mads Pedersen will pull 100% all the way in to the penultimate climb here at the Vuelta a España. Now, when he pulls off, he's got about a 3-minute and 40-second gap on Quick Step, which means with 22 kilometers to go, guys, we got 10 riders up front, now 9 after Mads Pedersen pulls off. But with only a gap of 3 minutes, 40 seconds on Quick Step, if the GC teams really want to start chasing back there, they can, and they can start to bring this group back. And remember, up front in this group of 9, Richard Carapaz is the big favorite. So if all the riders start racing real intelligent, nobody wants to pull Richard Carapaz all the way up 2 final climbs, especially when the last one's 7.5%. For the Ineos rider, you know he could just lick his lips the whole time if they're going to pull him all the way into the finishing climb and then just light everybody up and go solo. But if there's a tactical battle at 3 minutes and 40 seconds, if they slow down and some teams start chasing behind, all of a sudden we're going to have a big battle for the stage win and for the GC. Now, the guys up front, they get about 3-4 kilometers in this penultimate climb, and it's Alexei Lusenko. He throws in the first attack, and that's followed by Sanchez and Bruno Armai. When we look back at the group behind of 5 guys or so chasing, because we lost Marco Brunner back there from DSM, Mads Pedersen already dropped off. So when we look at this next group, look who's at the back of the group. It's Richard Carapaz getting a free ride. The guys in this group are just pulling up front. Richard Carapaz will do a little bit of work, and then finally he'll just jump across. He'll get some company coming across just behind him with Champuson from AG2R, and then that group up front will all come back together, minus Mads Pedersen, of course, and Marco Brunner. With those guys all back together, you got to believe it's going to be another tactical battle unless everybody wants to just continue to pull Richard Carapaz to the finish. We go back to the peloton just before they start the penultimate climb. We see there's a little bit of nervousness as there's a bit of a fight. We see Jumbo-Visma at the front. That means the pace is starting to pick up back there. Once the climb starts proper, it's going to be guessing back there from Jumbo-Visma that's starting to do some pulling on the front. We move back up to the GC guys because this is a tight battle. I'm going to have to jump back and forth throughout this butterfly effect edition because there's a lot going on. Just before we get near the top of the KOM, it's Sanchez, Bahrain victorious, that throws in his own attack, and he'll go over the KOM solo with about a 15-second gap on 5 riders chasing behind. In that group, Richard Carapaz, of course, and he's getting a little bit of help from the other guys pulling. And then we'll go back to the GC group where we see it's guessing still driving on the front, bringing the time gap down to about 2 minutes, 40 seconds when they're going over the top of the KOM. We go back up to the front group here of breakaway specialists. Richard Carapaz somehow on the descent between the penultimate climb before we start the last one. He's bridged across up to Luis Leon Sanchez to make 2 riders up in the front group. How this happened, I cannot guess from sitting on the couch because of all the riders you got to keep an eye out for when you're going down a descent, it's got to be Richard Carapaz because he has to do all the work. Already those guys back there just working with him was a no-no. But once Richard Carapaz bridged across, we go back and we look at this group of 4. And up there you see Alexei Lusenko. He's upset because Kenny Elizon won't take a pull. The Trek Segafredo rider's maxed out. His legs are hurt and there's nothing he can do. And we see Champuson up there along with Alexei Lusenko doing most of the work. Now we go back up to the front group of 2 as they start the final climb with 8.5 kilometers to go. And we see it's Richard Carapaz on the front. At this point in the race, Luis Leon Sanchez, Bahrain victorious, he's doing a fantastic tactical job. He knows, I can't pull with Carapaz. There's no way I'm going to do it. It'll take a couple kilometers, and then Champuson from AG2R bridge across. And we look back just about a couple K after that when we start nearing the finish of today's stage with about 4 kilometers to go. All of a sudden, we see it's Lotto Sudol Filippo back there who's found his way up to this group of 3. Now we got 4 guys up front, but Filippo won't take a pull. Samuel Sanchez won't take a pull. Luckily for Carapaz, that is, we see Champuson from AG2R, and he's willing to ride through. Now with Champuson taking pulls, behind, we go back to the GC battle back there because when we were dropping down between the 2 climbs down the descent, it was Team Ineos on the front going 100%. I don't like this tactic. I get why they're doing it. They're trying to get their team to start the last climb here with 8.5 kilometers to go at the front. But the group's so small, you don't need to do it. They took the time gap down from 2:40 when they started pulling over the second to last KOM here, and they took 20 seconds off with 8.5 kilometers to go to the Richard Carapaz-led group in front. Now at 2 minutes and 20 seconds, anything's possible at 8.5 kilometers to go when we're looking at the GC favorites behind. It's not going to take much time for Movistar to put Alejandro Valverde on the front. Then we see the first attack out of the GC group back there, and it's coming in the form of Burgos BH Diaz. Diaz throws in attack. You see Quick-Step trying to close the gap there with Remco Evenepoel. Now they will close that gap. Diaz will get caught, and then all of a sudden, with 6.6 kilometers to go, we're going to see Chris Harper from Jumbo-Visma get on the front when the gap's at about 2 minutes. The Jumbo-Visma rider's going to thin this group out. We got about 20 guys left in the GC group behind. Up front, there's a group of 4 there with Richard Carapaz. Champuson's up on the front, pulling right now for Richard Carapaz as he's looking down, getting nervous, seeing that the group of GC favorites is narrowing real close. With Chris Harper on the front, he's got this group down to under 20 riders behind, and he'll pull for about 2 kilometers, and then with just over 4 kilometers to go, we're going to see Van Wilder for Quick-Step get on the front. He's starting to drive on the pace on the front. He's got Remco Evenepoel on his wheel. Primoz Roglic is there, and it's only going to take about 200 meters longer before Primoz Roglic throws an attack for Jumbo-Visma. Now, with this attack, right away, Van Wilder pulls off the front. It's leaving Remco Evenepoel on the front as he's slowly letting the gap open to Primoz Roglic. Up front in the GC, now we start seeing attacks from Richard Carapaz as he knows the time gap is desperately coming down as we start getting an under 1 minute gap up to the front group with that attack from Primoz Roglic. Carapaz is throwing hard on the pedals. He's dropping his breakaway companions. Behind in the GC battle, we see it's Primoz Roglic. Remco Evenepoel can't close the gap, and the gap starts opening up more. Now we see an attack with just over 3 kilometers to go, and it's coming from Enric Mas and Miguel Angel Lopez. Nothing Remco Evenepoel can do about it as the 2 riders are trying to bridge up to Primoz Roglic. Now we look back behind as the gap's starting to get bigger and bigger. It's Quick-Step still, Remco on the front, and now he's starting to blow. We're starting to see other guys go up the road in the form of Carlos Rodriguez, Ayuso, and Arensman. Now, there's nothing Remco Evenepoel can do about it. As those riders start pulling away, he'll get a little bit of help as we see Ayuso, who was on fine form, all of a sudden needs a bike change and pulls over the side of the road. Now, Remco Evenepoel past Ayuso. We'll see Ayuso get back onto the Shimano blue bike, catch back up to Remco Evenepoel, and then drop the Quick-Step rider. Quick-Step rider Remco Evenepoel is having a hard time. He's starting to fall apart as the gap up to Primoz Roglic is now up to about 40 seconds. Primoz Roglic now is going in deep, but the problem is Mas and Lopez have now bridged up to Primoz Roglic. This means that Primoz Roglic needs to be a little bit careful because Mas is closely behind in 3rd place on the general classification, that of the 2nd place of Primoz Roglic, about 20-30 seconds back on GC. Now, Primoz Roglic has to back off the throttle a little bit, and it's going to be a little bit of a tactical battle, and this is what's going to help Carapaz up front because the gap up to Richard Carapaz is getting around 20 seconds, and Primoz Roglic knows he's got to be a little bit careful. Now, we start getting a little bit further up the road, and Richard Carapaz is digging deep with 2 kilometers to go because he knows the gap is under 20 seconds, and he's got to go big. He's digging 100%. We go back down to Primoz Roglic. All of a sudden, we see it's Mas that's coming off the back. Lopez is locked on to Primoz Roglic's wheel, so right now, Primoz Roglic has nothing to worry about. He's going full gas, trying to win the stage, trying to get time on Remco Evenepoel, possibly even trying to win the Vuelta a España here on stage 14 of the Vuelta a España. Now, we go further back down the road. Remco Evenepoel's finally starting to get a second win, and he stops losing time. He's got the time gap of about 40-50 seconds there up to Primoz Roglic, and he knows with the lead he had starting today's stage, comfortable lead he had starting today's stage, if he can get a second win, which he's got, he's holding this gap. Now up front, as we see, it's Carapaz starting to die with just about 1K to go. The gap is at 9 seconds to Primoz Roglic and Lopez. Only problem for Primoz Roglic is after the 1K sign, there's a descent into the finish, so Carapaz is going to get a little bit of relief. He goes over that, starts the descent, and then behind, when we start seeing Primoz Roglic, he's got some help from Lopez. Lopez is pulling on the front for Astana, trying to get a shot at winning today's stage. Up front, Richard Carapaz does one more big acceleration with 75 meters to go. He'll win today's stage. Lopez will come up second on the stage, 6 seconds back of that of Richard Carapaz. Along on his wheel for third to round out the podium here on stage 14 is Primož Roglic. Now, Primož Roglic, he's got to wait and see what's happening behind because, well, I told you there was a second win happening from Remco Evenepoel. Fourth on the stage to come across the line will be Almeida. Fifth on the stage, Carlos Rodriguez at 36 seconds. He's got Mas on his wheel, who lost a bunch of time there to Primož Roglic when he dropped off near the finish. Seventh crossing the line is our Ensman at 51 seconds. Remco Evenepoel comes across the line 56 seconds back of Carapaz, so about 50 seconds off of Primož Roglic's time, but then Roglic, he also got a bonus for getting third place on the stage. Now, when we start dissecting today's stage, this was a magical stage, right? There was all kinds of possibilities that could happen on the stage. Incredibly fast for the first 80 kilometers. I wish we got to see that, but we didn't. Then the 10 riders going up the road. Nobody a threat on the general classification, but with those 10 riders not really pulling 100% through, just working massively on the pedals up front, that meant we got to see this great battle for the stage, for the GC. Primož Roglic with Jumbo-Visma, they're going all in on the stage with Guessing pulling hard. Chris Harper then pulling up the last climb that just did damage to that gap to Richard Carapaz. Then Richard Carapaz having to finally drop his breakaway companions to go solo if he wanted to win today's stage. Primož Roglic picking off everybody as he's going up this last climb, putting time on the red race leader's jersey of Remco Evenepoel, who had suffered, but then had found a second win at the end of today's stage to really keep the battle close to Primož Roglic. After the stage, we start seeing some interviews from Ian Van Wilder, and Van Wilder said, hey, it's not that big of a deal. It's about 50 seconds. We have the best rider in the race still. Sometimes you have some bad moments. That interview, 100% spot on. This could just be bad calories, or guys, we could back the film up all the way a few stages to that crash on the stage that Richard Carapaz won earlier 2 days ago of Remco Evenepoel crashing. This could be the effect of the crash. This is about the time when you would really start feeling the damage from those crashes. And if that's the case, Remco Evenepoel's in trouble. If it was just a case of calories, no big deal. And when you look at the pictures of Remco Evenepoel afterwards while he's drinking a soda just crossing the line, he still looks pretty good. But we got another big stage up Sierra Nevada tomorrow on stage 15 here at the Vuelta a España, finishing out or closing out this weekend of racing here at the Vuelta a España. And I'll tell you, that was stage 10 of the Vuelta a España when I won in 2013. And the first start of that climb is going to be incredibly difficult. So if you're watching tomorrow's race, make sure you tune in for the beginning of that climb. Because unlike most climbs where riders will wait, you got to believe there's going to be a big, massive attacks right at the beginning of that last climb going up Sierra Nevada on tomorrow's stage 15. The first section's incredibly stiff for probably 4 or 5 kilometers, if I remember right. Then after that, it gets a little bit easier, not much easier, a little bit easier. You go from like 15 to maybe 9%. And then, of course, the last climb up to Sierra Nevada proper, I didn't get to see in 2013, so I'm not familiar with it. But it's going to be a big monster climb. We're going to still be at altitude here in the south of Spain. So Remco Evenepoel, if he was affected by altitude, he's going to have to deal with it tomorrow. If it was affected by calories today, he's going to have to eat good tonight. And if he was affected by that crash from 2 stages ago, then it could be even worse on tomorrow's stage 15, which might mean we're going to see Primož Roglic from Jumbo-Visma in the race leader's red jersey at the end of tomorrow's stage. Now, both riders are on fantastic form, and I'm not going to sit up here and tell you who's going to win tomorrow's stage or take the race leader's red jersey. I'm just going to tell you, you better tune in because it's going to be an exciting race on tomorrow's Sunday stage. Make sure you like and subscribe. I'll see you guys on the next edition, tomorrow's Sunday, stage 15 of the Vuelta a España. See you real soon.